You don't
Right.
produce immediately. You're done.
There's no nepotism in the market. The market, it's instant reaction.
Meritocracy.
That's the one thing about trading. It is a pure meritocracy. You have nowhere to hide. You're either right or wrong. The market will tell you.
Going home with your head down is not acceptable. You've got to come back the next day with a killer instinct.
People think I'm the oldest guy on the podcast. I'm actually almost the youngest guy here. My hair went gray because of the stress of Wall Street when I was in my 20s.
That's a good story. Keep telling it.
Well-
you might believe it one day.
Yeah, you might believe it one day, buddy.
Nobody else in my family that has
You were
their hair-
going great the moment I met you.
Yeah, because I was on Wall Street.
Before, when you first walked onto that floor.
Is this a Greek thing that you go gray early?
No, it's a Greek thing to blame it on something else.
That's a good one. It is something of an excuse, but nevertheless.
You know what's funny? All women will tell you, because I have many friend girls. You know, I'm very close to my sister. I have many friend girls, and they all say, "Oh no, Davio, girls love gray hair." You know what I say to them? Okay, can you introduce me to one?
Yes, and it's a blank stare going, well,
You'll find someone.
yeah.
You'll find
all
someone.
my girlfriends are in relationships with guys with a full set that's black,
Right.
right?
I'd rather be bald than
Or
have gray hair.
bald with a good facial.
Well, that's the old joke.
hair,
of,
right?
You know, shave your head and get a goatee.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
He
so much
showed
of a
me
joke.
a video
So-
earlier.
Yeah. So welcome, guys, everybody. We're back at the Leverage Podcast. We have again our guest Thrill. There was a great positive response to the first time he was on, and I think we left some conversations unsaid. So,
Yes, that reminds me of his Thrill name. When I was I believe, second-year resident in Houston at Baylor College of Medicine, my senior resident, and one of those, after a few drinks, after a couple of days, long hours of work, of taking care of, pretty sick people, she said, "You know what women want?" And I kept going, isn't that a movie, Mel Gibson, this and that? And so whatever I said, she just kept batting it away as we ordered more drinks. And after a while, she said, "Would you like me to answer?" Thrilled. We want to be thrilled.
that's why they call him the Thrill.
So maybe there's something to it.
So last time we met with you, and once again, I'm Davio, here with the Leverage Podcast. This is, as always, Dr. Macy, otherwise known as Rico
Suave.
Dr. Suave.
Shall forever be
Federico.
labeled as such.
Doctor
There's some truth to
Federico
it.
Suave.
That's actually...
No está mal, ¿eh? No está mal. Síganle diciendo.
So after you were basically a teenage millionaire, not quite teenage, but very young millionaire, you then had a radical shift, because obviously having that kind of experience young can be very eye-opening in a way that most people never experience.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, you then went to India to study spirituality. So tell us a little bit about
How that came about.
Well, that transition took place over many years, actually. When I first left the trading floor, it was more like because when I went to India, I'll start out actually. When I went to India, I was actually, I was on a path of seeking spirituality, and when I left the trading floor, I wasn't there. When I left the trading floor, it was more like a young kid with a bunch of money in his pocket and a habit of living a certain way. And that trajectory that I lived as a young kid led me to a place of requiring spirituality, well, I was saying.
Was there a specific moment where there was a paradigm shift?
It was a moment of rock bottom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you had been successful to that point.
Yeah. Well,
Economically or financially.
I was financially very successful, and it led me back to how I had lived as a teenager growing up in a very wealthy area with too much money in their hands from parents who basically wanted to, have, parents who just didn't have
interest, the time,
the interest and the time
devotion.
to really, and the devotion to really handle raising a kid responsibly.
Day to day.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the story of all the kids that I grew up with. And so when I left the trading floor and I had a bunch of money in my own pocket, and I was still a really immature person.
And why did you leave the trading floor? If the money was coming hand over fist, what?
I left the trading floor because of the lack of that.
Meaning or
The lack of that. No, the lack of the opportunity that was there previously because of the technological inefficiency of the market.
So your leverage disappeared, basically,
My leverage disappeared. My edge disappeared.
and you had the good sense to leave because you no longer had the leverage. Because some people just kept trying.
I lost a lot of money
Oh, did
right
you?
at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost, I had made a lot of money. And my final 2 months there, I did make the move off of the trading floor up into the offices. And I tried to trade, the markets via the electronic platforms, how, the future has become
against the algorithms.
with everybody else who was trading in the world. And then it became, rather than having an edge and having an advantage by being at the marketplace on the floor, it switched to becoming a pure speculative trader, speculating on which way the markets would go. And whenever you're a speculator, you don't fully know, which way the markets are going to go. And so it's kind of like gambling, but there's also ways to get a leverage in that way too, by basically studying markets, studying certain ways that, markets move, and also what indicators tend to flag before a market moves in one way. So still guys who are speculators are still very successful speculators, but it's a very hard game to become
so the last
good at. So my
couple
last
of months
my
were
last couple of months,
catastrophic.
yeah, I lost a lot of money.
So you became discouraged or said, I have to find a new
I lost money.
way in
I
life?
lost a lot of money, and I became psychologically.
Defeated or negative? Or?
Oh, dude, I remember riding the subway back to my apartment from downtown.
And were you living alone at the time? Or were you in a relationship?
I had girlfriends,
So,
you know.
okay, but one in particular that perhaps understood
I had a
what you were going
girlfriend at
through?
the time, but I was also breaking up with that girl, and I was kind of in transition.
So there wasn't a cohesive relationship that could help you.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. I wasn't in a very mature relationship.
Right.
I was a young kid.
And that would be
You were a
commonplace.
23-year-old millionaire.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
This wasn't a transient relationship. There's someone that had been
I was
you
with
for some time.
I was with for 4 years.
4 years. Yeah. So it was a long term.
Yeah.
Relationship. But it wasn't at the
She was a
level
Miami girl. She was
who had moved to New York
Yeah.
for school or work or both.
She moved to New York for her school and work.
Right.
Yeah.
So you no longer had leverage in trading, and so you made the decision to step back, which is that was very wise. Most people just beat their head and lose it, right? Number of people.
I
from my own
was beating
experience-
my head a little bit at the end.
right, but you didn't lose it all,
I didn't lose it all.
right?
Right.
And I decided to walk away.
A lot of people ride the elevator all the way to the top and then ride it all the way
And
down.
so going on the subway by yourself, having had a rough day or a rough week.
Oh yeah, I was like a psychological mess. Right. You know, you walk out of that trading floor after you've been gone through a 4-hour work day, might I add, because the trading floor,
Right. Is that,
4.5.
the hours were from 10 to 2:30
Right.
every day,
With a 2-hour lunch.
with a lunch break in between. You know, you could choose your lunch time, and the markets didn't really stop in between, but they got really slow for some period of time. But
For about 2 hours in the middle of the day.
depending on the day,
Right,
You know, some
sure.
days were really, really.
Isn't
busy,
that the
but-
way people work today now?
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, so like after a 4.5 hour workday, I remember getting on the subway at times during my last months there, where I would have days where I would have been up 20, down, and I'm talking thousands,
$20,000 in one day.
right? But up 20, then like down 10, then up 30, then down 40, then up 10.
Yeah. So
Then,
your heart
like-
is sinking and rising and sinking.
Yeah, so it's
and
like
rising.
it's like that.
It's erectile dysfunction of money.
Right.
It does something to your neurochemistry,
No doubt.
and also your heart is
Yes.
not.
Your adrenaline rush and then your dopamine highs. a few
Unfortunately,
endorphins.
we're so like in our culture, we're so attached to this concept of wealth
Yeah.
that we become almost physically, our health becomes attached to how much money we make or lose.
I mean, it was my dream job, and I'm the first to admit I am not psychologically. You know this. I'm not psychologically suited. You and I used to work with people that were doing the same job as us, and at the end of the day, they would literally gamble tens of thousands of dollars on random college sporting events just to feel that juice at night. Whereas for me, when the day was done, as you know, I was not the world's greatest trader, but I was in the small percentage of people who did make money. I wasn't a bad trader. I just wasn't a great trader. And my main,
You were just new.
well, this is not just new. I didn't have the
need.
the risk tolerance
Right.
to put on big positions.
Right.
I made
I was
money.
very lucky. I came from a trust fund too. You know, it's like I had 50 grand to put in my account, which wasn't a lot of money really, but like it
At
was-
that age, it was. Early
was,
on.
you're right.
Early on, it's a lot of money. But what you're saying is that you did not have cocaine sex disease.
Exactly. Explain that, Fred.
So-
As a
I had that.
and
I still do. Yeah. It's something that never goes.
I call it CSD. And I have,
explain it.
So CSD basically is
There's no
And
medicine
cocaine
for
is
it,
a-
unfortunately.
it's that
The only medicine for it is more cocaine and more
that
sex.
stimulation you need in your hedonism center and your nucleus accumbens, which gives you that dopamine high. And there are many things that can do it, particular to an individual person. For some people, it's gambling. For some, it could be that bet on a random college game at the end of the day.
You know, Sandy Goldfarb, who was there when I first got invited down. I came into his office and he was sitting there and he asked me, you know, he was interviewing me to bring me to Mark. You know, he was trying to see if I was
It's the first level of the interview process.
right. But in his office, he had 3 TVs up on his ceiling, and they were all his horse races.
Yeah.
He was an addictive
So he
gambler
was-
on his
right.
own horses.
So gambling, shopping,
Yeah.
obviously cocaine and other drugs, and sex addiction. I have friends who may be in a what they believe to be a stable relationship, but it's not authentic
No.
because they have this parallel life on
I've
social
been
media
there
today.
before. I've been there
right?
before.
And so all of these opportunistic situations that are part of an OCD spectrum, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I more funnily call CSD, cocaine sex disease. And what you guys were doing had that element
Yeah,
of saying, I'm up 40, my endorphins, my dopamine is great. God, I'm the man. What can I do to go up 60? And then 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, you find yourself down 20, as you were saying. And so you sink. But then the challenge is there to recreate that feeling that you had before.
Well, some people chase that feeling, and that chase
All the time.
right?
Is
Whereas for someone
part
like
of
me,
the CSZ.
The
You
way-
didn't
I'm
have
exhausted.
it. No, that's because you had the other part of your brain called the amygdala, which is your natural bodyguard, your guardian angel. It says, careful here. You know, you're stepping into it's swamp. It's not solid ground. Just stay on the edge. You're okay today. Just call it a day. Go get some food. You're fine. Don't gamble.
It makes me wonder though if like all of society to a certain extent has a little bit of CSD ingrained in their
Western societies
Western
have
society seems
conditioned
like that.
us
Yeah.
because we remember the era of the robber barons, 1800s, the super gazillionaires.
Yeah.
We aspire to be the financial success person, the richest here, the greatest car, the nicest suits, the best watches, the most jewelry, the woman that is dressed to the hill that's on our arm, whether arm candy or not.
Yeah.
And so we have a false sense of value
Yeah.
in ourselves, which does not equate necessarily with who we are if we're only smart enough to understand that duality.
That's a great transition, Fred. So here you are, 23 years old, millionaire. It's not what people think it would be. You're not happy in a way. How does that transition and lead you to your experience in India?
To the east.
So it started at rock bottom, like I said. And that rock bottom was a place that led me to a time of recovery where I had help. So a treatment center.
So
And
was that a substance abuse issue that led to rock bottom?
yeah, absolutely.
And so then you got help.
Yeah, absolutely. I went. I was living. The fast paced. I mean, how do you call it? It's like the.
New York
the
in
Wall
the
Street
early
lifestyle.
In New York in the early 2000s, we used to call it the town of lonely models. It was a smorgasbord of
We had
the life.
the guys that I worked for who trained me to do what I did when I first got to the floor. I was 19 years old, so I was fresh out of high school, basically, and then I was there as an early college school kid, and these guys who were there, who I was learning from, who were 10 years, 15 years older than me, the way that they would initiate me or us into that world was very hedonistic, like very
Right. The
extravagant.
CSD concept
Right.
of getting your thrills
Right.
through that. So a regular 5 is dating 10s,
Exactly.
right? Daily.
Yeah.
And a different one
Yeah.
every other day.
Yeah.
To your point.
And
of the,
while
It's
we're-
the town of lonely models.
And while we're working on the floor, you go into the bathroom at any given time and you hear
this on a
guys coming from the stalls, snorting whatever they're doing, and then coming
better
back to
on an
work.
escort task.
I mean, the way I liked to call it actually was like a giant locker room because I grew up playing hockey. I grew up playing ice hockey and
What
ice hockey.
position did you play?
I played forward a bunch, like a few different. I played all different positions forward. Yeah.
You guys are actually both hockey players. That's what you don't know.
You're a hockey player?
Sure.
No shit.
Yeah.
Most
Oh
people.
my God.
I grew up in
man.
Canada, in Toronto. Yeah. I can tell you stories. I don't want to go too much into it. More interesting yours, but
We should play. man.
I had
I still play sometimes.
some hockey
For men's-
experiences
yeah.
that were very good, and hung out with some famous hockey players.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to tell him. You have to tell him
Hockey.
the
is-
Wayne Gretzky story.
The Wayne
This
Gretzky
is
story.
You met
this
Wayne
is
Gretzky?
the podcast where you tell this story.
You
Okay.
know Wayne Gretzky?
We're
Yes.
we're gonna hijack
So-
this
so
podcast.
let
This
me-
is one of the greatest stories.
So here's
And then I'm going to tell the story of when you told this story and who you told it to, but that's the end.
Okay.
That's the
So
punchline.
in Toronto, when I was, I suppose, first year University of Toronto, I was working at a restaurant called Bemelman's on Bloor Street, close to Yonge, so the main intersection in Toronto. A very uppity, very nice restaurant. Boring Monday night or so. So I've got the front section, and all of a sudden, I see this guy come in, push the door forward, and it was icy, wintry, and he slips and falls on his ass. So I go, naturally, I react. I go pick him up, and it's Wayne Gretzky.
Like a nice Latino.
And he's had a few too many drinks, and I think he had a Ferrari Testarossa that he had parked on Bloor Street, which is like, nobody parks there.
Yeah.
But he had come in. I think he had just come back from Norway. I believe he had just won the scoring championship for the Canadian national team, junior national team.
So this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like before
Where he was, still a teenager.
Wow.
But
This
remember,
is young Wayne. This is
This is
He had a
probably
Testarossa
17.
at
I
that
was
time?
18. I'm a year older than he is. So
He was a showboat,
no. He was the
he have a-
nicest guy.
but he had a
in the world.
Testarossa.
What is
You can be you can be exactly.
He had already had-
exactly.
Listen,
That's like being a sage and you can still drive a Rolls Royce.
So before he went to the NHL, to the Edmonton Oilers, he had played for the Indianapolis Racers. So he had a contract. And I think the owner, Peter Pocklington, I think was his name, sold him to the owner of the Edmonton
Oilers, yeah.
in the first season. So he was still a teenager, but the drinking age was 18 or above. And everyone in the country knows he's 17. So he comes in, he's had a few too many. Ferrari at the front, he slips. So I prop him up and put him in my section and feed him a bowl of broccoli cream soup with pumpernickel bread with real butter.
Was he alone?
And yes, alone. And a teacup. And he's like, what is there in tea? And I go, no.
What was in there?
I put some stuff. I went to the gay bartenders because we had celebrities
What kind of
go
stuff?
to that
What
restaurant.
kind of stuff? Like alcohol?
There's some bourbon,
Yeah,
whiskey,
okay.
Canadian mist,
My
wild
mind
turkey.
went somewhere else.
No, no Thunderbird here. Yeah. So I go to the two guys who I know well, and I was a young man that was in particular esteemed well by the gay population in Toronto, which was quite numerous. Toronto and San Francisco were sister cities,
I didn't know that.
considered the two most beautiful cities in North America, and very safe.
Okay.
And so there was a similar vibe. Toronto had a huge gay population, incredible.
not the hatred for gays. It was
No.
tolerance and
Beautiful.
and appreciation.
Yeah, our
If you think of
What
historic,
is it,
Restaurant.
what is it like now?
it's become.
Changed like everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't lived there a number of years, so I don't want to speak for the
Okay.
now because I haven't been there in a while. But when I grew up as a teenager, I was sent from Mexico at the age of 12 to Canada. Okay, and that's a whole story.
that's
very
another.
interesting.
No, let's get to the. Let's do the Wayne Gretzky
So
story.
Wayne, so I sit him there and feed him and so on, and I said, Wayne, you can't your car. He throws me the keys, and so I take the car around the back. Right. So after a while, I got him some
So
coffee.
you literally
drinks.
just picked him up. You brought him some soup
yeah
that had something in it, and he gives you the keys to the
Ferrari
Ferrari.
to go park. So I bring it around.
And
the
you're
back.
what? You're 18 and he's 17.
18, yeah, he's 17. So I've got him there. He cools down. And of course, it was a Monday night, not busy. Late at night, I'm the waiter closing. We used to stay open until 2 o'clock in the morning. That was
Toronto's like
I'm-
New York. It's
yeah.
a late night city.
Denver's
Age
like
for
that.
drinking was 18.
Okay.
Okay, so it was commonplace. So no big deal. So after he's like very appreciative, hey, I really, you want to hang out sometime, blah, 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 blah. I go, where are you heading? Well, I'm, check hotel, whatever. And that was it, right? And he remembered. That was it. I didn't get his number. He didn't get nothing. So the following summer, goes to Edmonton and, hugely successful.
Greatest hockey player of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time.
So the following year, they win the Stanley Cup. So I happened to go to a restaurant called Pat and Mario's.
The GOAT.
Pat and Mario's. They've just won the Stanley Cup. It's the summer, I guess, of 82. 182, I don't recall, one or the 2 years. I'm in now third year university, pre-med, et cetera.
Hey, Chandler, can you look up when Edmonton won their first Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I believe it was 82, the summer of 82. So I'm working at a different restaurant called Pat Mario's in the summer, very popular, packed. And I walk in, and there's Wayne with another man. It turned out to be his business manager. So he recognizes me, and he says hello.
And by the way,
I mean,
drunkenly the one guy who brought him a soup and he recognized you, that just shows you
he's a
the
classy
photographic
guy.
memory. Yeah, yeah.
incredibly classy guy.
The guy.
So I
yeah.
go in, and they have the cordoned off the area where he sat. So, but he's lets me in. And I go in there and we sit down and, hello, he's got a ring.
Mm-hmm.
He said, hey, puts it on my hand. I put his Edmonton Stanley Cup ring on. And we sit there and we chit chat and, what are you doing? Well, you're working? You work at this restaurant? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm in pre-med and he's, cool, blah, blah, blah. Chit chat. Two young guys at that age, 21, or he's probably 20 at the time.
No, he's 18.
Well, no, this is 2 years later now.
So he's 19.
Yeah, say 20. So we start talking about Aztec Stadium in Mexico City because it's the largest stadium, for soccer. And I said, wouldn't it be great if you could hold a hockey match in Aztec Stadium? And we started, joking about what's the weather like, what's the altitude. It would be so cool to have like an all-star game in Mexico City. I said, they're crazy about hockey. They're crazy about you. And it's like, what? Yeah. It's amazing. And there's a huge business down south that for 100 years, hockey, NHL, is the oldest professional league.
What?
Yes, it is. Look it up.
In Mexico?
No, in the world.
Oh,
In
in the
the United States. In
United
North
States.
America.
North America.
Yeah.
Because the original 6 teams and then the expansion.
Right.
So we started talking. I said, wouldn't it be great to have teams in like the South, Florida, LA, like indoctrinate, get people into it?
It's hilarious that you brought that up.
Then it happened.
I know, right?
Down the line.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my idea. But we brought it up. We talked about Six Stadium and so on and so forth. So he's like, hey, we're getting
when
together.
when you were talking to him at that time, there weren't
No.
NHL
In the South. No
South?
teams.
Okay.
All Northeast or I believe there may have been a California Seals,
Yeah.
maybe the LA Kings, the start of that Southern movement, right? Remember, he's in Edmonton.
Yeah.
He's, they're about to win 4 cups almost in a row before he gets sold to the LA Kings in
Okay.
like 86, 87, right? A huge tragedy.
This is after his first title.
Yeah, first title, right? He's young, vibrant, Wayne, super humble, no arrogance, no
That's why he was so good,
conceitedness.
though.
I mean, we're having chat. I go to the front. The girls are all there after him. Blah blah blah. At the time, he was dating a girl from Edmonton. Her name was Vicky Moss. I remember
It's a cool name.
Vicky Moss. She was a singer, very good-looking girl, and so, lots of girls. And he's like, hey, don't want trouble. Wayne was very careful, and he was very close to his family, especially, of course, his parents and his father. His dad. Very respected man. In any case, so we're there and like, hey, a few of us are going to get together over
So
at.
you were like friends with this guy.
Well, I would.
This is where the story's
acquaintance.
going.
You were friends with
So-
Wayne Gretzky.
so-
dude.
Listen, this gets
Do you
good.
realize my number when I grew up playing hockey was 99,
99,
man?
le 99.
By the way,
99.
In français. Because the first time he went to the
Comment
Montreal
se dit
Forum,
en français?
le 99.
Why do they call it that?
That's 99 in French.
Really?
Yeah.
Les quatre?
Le 4,
It's 100 minus 1.
Yeah. 4 20s plus 19. That's how they say it in French. The French. They
The
know
Les quatre?
80. 80.
Les 80.
4 times 20 plus 19. That's how
Les
they say 99.
80? Oh my God.
There's no-
What the hell is wrong with those people?
But
Because it sounds beautiful.
Yes.
Why would you say 99 when you could say
le
that?
99. Sexy, right?
Jesus.
You know what's
the
funny?
French.
My grandmother is Greek, and obviously my dad is Greek, and his sister is Greek. And my dad married an American, and my dad's sister married a French guy.
Yeah.
And my grandmother used to say, "Oh, American, your language is like blah 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 blah," whereas the French is.
There is
Very
a lot
sensual.
of sexiness to French
There is
language.
sensualness.
However,
So the French-
99 that doesn't make sense to me. Like,
It
that's
is-
like pure stupidity.
But it
is
sounds
what it is.
sexy.
Yes. So the story goes that, I called a few of my friends. Among them were the twin sons of the mayor of Toronto. So I call Alec Rollins, and I say, Alec, I'm down here with Wayne Gretzky. Oh, bullshit. So they come down. By this time, the restaurant is packed all the way to the street.
Because people know.
well, he's the most famous person in Canada.
So he kept
He's the
coming
most
to
famous
you-
Canadian of all time.
He kept
And-
coming
no,
to
no, no,
your
he's not.
restaurant.
He's
though.
the second most famous.
Who's number one?
Tommy Douglas.
And who was that?
Oh my God! You
No,
guys-
at the time though,
as
who
a
was
Canadian,
he?
I have to.
Yeah, but
as
at
a
the
Mexican
time.
Canadian, who is he? The guy that came up, amazing guy, with the socialized medical system for Canada.
Right, Wayne Gretzky's more famous.
Was that a good?
If
Is that a
if you
good?
ask Wayne, he goes, "I'm not even in the top 10."
Well,
That's how humble he is.
Can I
He
ask
really is.
you though? Has the socialized medical system for Canada been a good thing for all people?
I mean, maybe the population has overgrown it because it was meant to be with a smaller population. Again, I can go into. Let's get onto the financial aspects.
How about for the wealthy
of the
people
system.
of Canada? Has it been a good situation
Many
for
come
them?
to the U.S. or go elsewhere for
Yeah.
healthcare. But yeah,
for
but
the
let's not
high end
get-
stuff, but that's separate.
Yeah, it has
Let's
served
get
the
back
country
to
well.
you. So you and Wayne,
And
this
people
is a
like
party.
it.
So
Yeah.
you,
So I get invited. Hey, we're going to go to McCarthy's apartment over here. Borja Salming, who was an all-star defenseman for Toronto, and again, it was him saying, "Hey, do you want to come over? We're having a barbecue. We're having this and that." So I went once or twice.
but you
And
invited
he
him,
was
right?
no, he invited me.
Oh.
Hey, I'm going. You with some of the Toronto
Are
players.
you still in contact with Wayne Gretzky, please?
No, I'm not today, but I've seen him a couple of times. He coached the Coyotes
Yeah.
for a time. I think he was a part owner. He may still be. I don't know.
I think he
And
is, yeah.
I went to one of the games when the Coyotes were here playing Dallas before Mike Modano's retirement.
Okay.
And I took my daughter, and we sat right by the bench of the Coyotes, maybe one row back, close to the glass. And I took my daughter, and she caught 3 pucks that day.
Wow.
But let me tell you how she caught the 3
What?
pucks. The first was basically
3
luck.
pucks?
3 pucks. A girl that was maybe 6 years old
In
catches
one
3
day?
pucks sitting on the first or second row
Wow, dude.
behind the glass. And Wayne's there, right?
That's
And
magical.
Wayne kind of saw me and recognized me. This is years later. Now, by this time I'm married. He's been married to Janet Jones. They've had their children,
Right.
et cetera, right?
You guys
So-
hadn't hung out for 20 years.
No. We hadn't seen him for a long time, right? I've done my
you
medical
guys hang out a
training.
bunch.
No, I saw him a bunch of times here and there in Toronto.
He would always invite you,
couple
right?
of more times. I ran into him, and he would say, "Well, we'll invite him."
I can't believe you're friends with Wayne Gretzky.
Well, I don't go that far. Met him a few times. Always super guy, right? And he would go.
He's friends with Wayne Gretzky like I'm friends with Sandy.
right. Okay.
If we saw each other in a party,
Yeah,
he'd be like, "Hey,
"Yeah, how are you?" Be very polite.
No, but
But
it sounds like more than
More.
So let me tell you about the 3 pucks, because that's a cool story. So we're there. I think, during the game, Wayne looks, I raise my hand. He goes, "Oh, hi." So period 1, a puck comes over, it lands close by. I run and get it, and I give it to my daughter. Okay, that's puck number 1. Then in one of those things where the players are going towards the bench, the little alley, I shout to Modano, "Mike, throw a puck over." And so he does. He flips it with his
because you're
skate.
friends with Mike.
Not Modano. To say hello.
Right.
Run into
He recognized
with
you.
Emmett Smith, some of the local celebrities.
You know
To say
Emmett
hi.
Smith?
Huh?
You know Emma Smith?
Yes. Correct. So throws the puck over. My daughter, it lands in my hands. I give it to her. She's 6, right? So we got 2 pucks. Then between the second and third period, then Wayne comes over and says, "Hey, how are you doing? Federico? Fred?" And he went, "Oh, good. Doing well. Yeah, I'm in LA, kids." I go, "Yeah, I got it. I kept up. Congratulations on the, your current thing and so on and so forth. Would you do me a favor?" He said, "Anything. Can you throw my daughter a puck?" So he goes to the bench, grabs one, and throws it.
Because 2 wasn't enough.
I mean, unbelievable, right? 3
Two.
pucks for a 6-year-old.
2 in one day
Yeah.
wasn't
So
enough.
he was cool and
you
so
had
on.
to ask for one more.
And so he was like, I went out, say hello. He was going to the bench, so not much time. "Hey, you're living in Dallas? Yeah, great town, blah, blah. Hey, good to see you again." I said, "Well, I'm sorry to see, you're retired now." He goes, "Well, it's the next phase of my career," and so on,
yeah.
And so he is one of those guys that's what you want of a superstar. Whiskey reminds me of him, truly.
How?
I
Wait, whiskey does?
Nowitzki.
Dirk.
Dirk.
Although I never played tennis, and Nájera promised me.
Right.
He promised me, Eduardo Nájera, the excellent Mexican basketball player, played for various teams, or of course, here with the Mavs for a number of years, and because Nowitzki he loves tennis.
That was his original sport.
Let's put some money down. Me and Nowitzki, let's put at least $100, dinner at Nick and Sam's or Albernays. You and I, let's play a set. It never happened, even when some of those guys used to come to my house in Highland Park. So I've gotten to see some of the athletes, very famous players.
It's amazing, yeah.
At their humblest. I mean, amazing guys. No ego or anything like that.
That's how they become the best.
That's right.
That's what I would say.
Makes a difference. But anyways, so that was a little segue. So Wayne is an incredibly respected individual because I think he's kept that. That was Walter Gretzky. That's him. It's Wayne. Walter is his dad.
Right.
In many ways. He may not. I mean, I think he knows that, but when you hear it from someone else, it really, I think, is very powerful.
So let me just tie an end to that story. So one time, Fred and I went to there's a spot here in Dallas where it's like the best outdoor patio where people hang out, and we go there, and there's like these picnic tables, and you sit wherever's available, and sometimes it's a cool thing about it. You meet strangers. So we sit next to these cute young girls, and
much younger than us.
Yeah. And they're there, and they're all excited because they're there for the hockey game. We said, oh, yeah. And they said, oh, so who do you think the greatest hockey player of all time is?
They asked us.
And I said, actually, that's a funny story. And I knew of his story of being literal friends with Wayne Gretzky.
Well, okay, acquaintance.
Well, but you guys hung out when you were young.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a couple of times.
When he would come to Toronto, you told me when he would come to Toronto, he would ask you to go out. Yeah, you guys would hang out. You hang out.
Because I was the chick magnet, not him. Let's be clear about that.
More than you hung out with him more than 2 times.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a friend to me. I have people I hung out with less than that I consider.
And if Wayne watches this one day, remember Wayne, Aztec Stadium. You'll remember with your agent at Pat Mario's. And when you put your ring on me, remember? Anyways.
So these girls are like, oh, who do you think the greatest players of all time? I say, actually, my friend has a great story. And he told the story about him knowing Wayne, and they made this sour face. They were like, yeah. What we found out at the end of the evening, those were literally Mario Lemieux's daughters.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Their friend,
wow.
I'm still friends with
But dude, Mario Lemieux.
Well, he's the only other person that could be in that short.
Yeah,
or
Mario Lemieux. It's hard to say. That
yes,
guy
Mario,
was fucking incredible.
Amazing. Anyways, that was amazing. The coincidence of those daughters there, and they kind of looked like him.
Yes.
Once you start looking at them, because he was tall, he was graceful, he was pretty good looking. These girls are very good looking.
Yeah. But their friend was the only one that played college hockey.
Harkey?
Hockey. Whatever you guys call it. That weird ass sport you guys play.
Anyways, let's get back to our story here.
India. Tell us about India. What inspired you to go from being...
What were we talking about before?
Well, you went through rehab. There was a void there that you needed to fill.
Exactly. That's what it was. I think that all people go through cycles in life, and that all cycles go in a circle from top to bottom. And it's like the bottoms lead us to the top and the tops lead us to the bottom. And the whole while, we're learning our way to a higher top. And every time we reach a top, we go back to a bottom. And then we reach a higher top. And that's what happened, was I reached the bottom, which led me to a realization, or not a realization, but a gift of an understanding of a new way of seeing the world and seeing my own life at that young age, which was in a more spiritual way, which was to understand that I'm not, the person that my family told me I had been my entire life, am not the center of the universe, and I'm not the creator. I'm not like the end all and be all of existence, and that. And there's something more. There's something more here. You know, there's like when I was at that age, I started to understand myself, meaning like my truer self. I was started to understand myself in the terms of what's more real about myself, which isn't really the I or the me or this man named Will, this young man named Will. It's more that there is a spirit here that is more of who I am than this I or this me or this Will that my family has called me my entire life.
Do you think your experience having all that money at a young age was like a shortcut for you having that revelation? Because a lot of people think, oh, if I could just have the beautiful girl, if I could just have the money, then my life will be complete.
I think that if everybody had the opportunity to get what they wanted as quickly as they wanted it, then they would learn lessons very quickly. You know,
Okay, so listen, on that, we need to.
I think we're never going to get to the India.
No, we will, because it's a tease. It's a tease.
Right.
Because it's what he says. It's a metaphor for that greater high.
Right.
So we'll get there. So we need to go to the next segment with him on this. I think we need to just talk India.
Okay.
That is rich, a Pandora's box of
the
wealth
India
and information.
conversation will take a long time,
Right,
I think, because there's a lot of questions to ask that.
And from a medical perspective, I'm very curious because in Western medicine, we often, unfortunately, look through a narrow lens at people, at disease, at healing, or pharmaceuticals. It's complex. And I think maybe what you've gone through will allow us to see a way to heal people by combining ancient medical, holistic, allopathic, natural, spiritual.
Yeah, right.
Techniques
and strategies.
To help people. So why don't we start, our next show or segment with the India experience.
Well, guys, everybody, this has been a tease. This is the Levers Podcast. Hope you'll join us again next week.
Awesome.
Thank you all very much for having me.
Oh.